Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Well, welcome to Meet the Author. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're going to be talking to Lisa Petrocelli. She's a Colonie resident and a motorcycle enthusiast. She's just written this book, The Gloves Come Off. It's all about motorcycle, and it profiles 15 bikers, I guess you could say, and is intertwined with some of Lisa's articles from New York Rider magazine. So welcome, Lisa.
Thanks
for coming.
Thank you.
And I should say before we get going, Lisa's going to be here on Monday night, August 13th at 7 o'clock, and she's going to be bringing some of the people she writes about in here if you want to know more, or if what you hear today will pique your interest. So Lisa, before we talk about your motorcycle days here, give us the capsule biography I like to tell people, and a little bit, you live in Colonie and you work for the state and everything, but tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going on that.
Yes, I've always lived in Colonie. I grew up here, went to Colonie Central High School. I come from a pretty big family. My father, Louis Padula, owned Pizza Nook, which some people may remember, which was on the corner of Central Avenue and Osborne Road. I have 4 brothers. We all live still close to our parents and grew up in Colonie. I work for the state government. I work for the New York State Library, and I have been since I graduated high school in 1979, so it's been quite a few years. I married a photographer who is now a pretty famous photographer, Lisa Petrocelli, who does a lot of weddings around here, and he's also involved in photographing motorcycles and that kind of thing. And we have 3 children, 2 girls, Sarah, who's 22, Sophia, who's 19, and a little boy, Dino Jr., who's 11.
Well, you write in your book that you got into motorcycling or clubbing, whatever the term is. Well, I have some terms I want to ask you about in a minute, but you came into it after you were married and had your kids and everything. So you got a sort of a late start in motorcycle riding, or
yeah,
what's the story?
Really, I have to say it had to be when I was 15 years old, and my cousin Vinny came over and said, Lisa, you want to take a ride on the motorcycle? And I was scared at first, but I said, yeah, okay, if we go just around the corner. So he took me for a ride around the corner, and it was only like a 15-minute ride. And I remember being scared and totally thrilled at the same time. And when I got off, I thought to myself, I have to do that again. So went home and told my mother, that was so much fun. My mother said, you're crazy, you know. But, and my parents' pizza place, I used to sit there on Saturdays helping my mother out, make boxes sometimes for the pizza. And I remember one day every summer there would be this big pack of bikers riding by. I don't know if it was, now this was back in the 70s, early 70s, so I don't know what event it must have been, but every year it was around the same time, and I'd run outside when I heard them coming, and I'd be waving to everybody, and I'd think, oh, I'd love to do that someday. So, but I never pursued it. My husband and I got married, and to get that thrill, he bought a jet ski instead.
But when you guys got married, did he have a bike then when you got married?
No.
So he didn't either. Okay.
He didn't either.
So
but I mean, he rode dirt bikes when he was a teenager. Yeah. But we wanted to do something like that, so we said, "Oh, let's try a jet ski." So he got a jet ski, and I don't know. I'm not really a water person, so I was kind of bored with that. After our daughters got a little bit older, we decided to try a bike. So he got a bike, and at first I wasn't riding with him a lot because I had my children were really small, so I was home all the time. But when I started riding on the back, and we started going to
so this is you were like in your 30s by now when you started riding, or
more like 40.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd say mid 30s because then I had to take a little hiatus because we had another child when I was 40. So
Okay, so you started riding
mid-30s.
around.
So we would go to these events, and I would be really intimidated. I think that's the word. I wasn't really scared, but I was a little bit intimidated and thinking, I
By
don't
the
know.
people or the culture or the
just things I heard
Yeah.
and just seeing everybody as a clique. That's the way I saw them, more as a clique. All those,
The different group,
all the
yeah.
bikers, and
Yeah.
I would think, I don't know if we're good. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if we're going to fit in, and but I'd start talking to people, and they'd be just people, and I'd be surprised that somebody who looked really bad or mean was the total opposite of what I
Yeah.
thought, and so I started reading more about bikers. I'd go to the bookstores, I'd go to the libraries, and look for books about the biker culture, not about motorcycles, but about the biker culture, which were pretty hard to find. So I remember going one day to Barnes & Noble, I think it was, and I couldn't find anything that I was looking for. And they told me to try the crime section. So I went over to the crime section, and I found some books about the biker culture. And I thought, that's really interesting that it's all in the crime section. So I bought like maybe 5 books. I read everything I could about biker culture. I wasn't really interested in motorcycles. I like to look at them. My husband's more interested in that part. He photographs different things. But I wanted to know more about the people, what drives people to be in that kind of life. And
Well, when did you start writing? You write for New York Writer magazine. When did you start?
well,
writing?
that was after. That
Okay.
came after.
Okay.
But
Well, let me just go back for 1 second, because this starts where maybe I was the same way. And your book really, I think, does this very well. And this is probably the first question, probably the question you get a lot. What is the biggest misconception about bikers or people who ride motorcycles?
I think it's that they're all criminals, especially the clubs. I think, and I'm guilty of that myself, because I read some of the books I read were all about the criminal activity of different motorcycle clubs, and I thought, wow,
But the people you were meeting and the husband
it was total opposite. So I would meet these people, even members of 1% clubs, which are Hell's Angels, Warlocks, different what they call power clubs, and I think these are really there's I don't have a problem with any of these people. They were all very respectful. They were interested in things I said. They answered all the questions I had, and I thought, I think somebody should write a book about what I thought I want to write a book about what I've experienced, not what I've read.
Okay.
Because everything I read was all negative, and I thought somebody should write something about positive things. So.
Well, your book profiles 15 men. Some live in the Capital District and some don't. So how? And then they're very interesting. I would tell people watching, they're very wide range of people. Why did you choose? Because it seems like you, from reading your book, the parts in between, tons of bikers.
Yeah.
Why did you choose these 15? What were some of the reasons?
I chose people who I had a chance to get to know.
Okay.
I didn't want to use people who I didn't really know that well. I do meet hundreds of bikers. I've met hundreds, and certain people stood out to me for one reason or another.
In fact, you say you're very close friends with a few of the people.
Yes.
Okay.
And well, that's why I did it the way I did. I wanted to get to know them, really, their families, and the way they live their lives, and really be able to write about them instead of and it's really more about their lives outside of the motorcycle
Yeah.
culture in a way, because it's not about their club life. It's not anything like that. It's more
And there's
what
not much.
they are.
There's not much about motorcycles either, like you were saying.
No.
There's nothing about motorcycles.
No, and that's because I don't know anything about motorcycles. I know a little bit, but not enough to write a book
So
about.
these 15 men,
Yeah.
and you chose all men. What is it? Like I say, or I'm sorry, I don't interrupt you there, but what is it about these guys that really drew you into? I want to write about these 15 guys.
Well, there's different reasons for each one of them. I'll use, I can try to do it really quick. Barr, the first one in the book, is a Marine, a retired Marine who is very, actually he's running right now for New York State Assembly. He was very anxious to start an ABATE chapter in Albany, which is, ABATE is a group that tries to fight the rights for bikers, and he, against all odds, finally got a a chapter together. And I admired that because I saw what he went through to get it
Yeah.
started. And I watched over a couple of years, I watched him do that, and I thought, he's really ambitious. He would be a good one to talk about that. Sean is another example. Sean looks like the typical biker that you think of when you think of a biker. He's got the long black hair, wears a 40-pound chain, looks really intimidating, bad, and mean. Total opposite when I interviewed him. He's an engineer. He's extremely intelligent, has a child now, and
So all your preconceptions of bikers were
all
shattered with
yes,
it.
yes.
Well, I mean, for me reading it, mine were also. There's very one person or one term that keeps coming up in all your interviews, or not interviews. Some of these guys actually wrote, some little text. A term that keeps coming up with these guys and with you is this term non-judgmental. We don't judge people. This is like it goes through almost every single person. What is that characteristic about bikers what is that all about, I guess, is my question.
I really don't. I think the reason is that they're less judgmental than most people that I've met is because the things that are paramount to bikers, especially bikers in clubs, but not even individual riders, is respect. Respect means a lot to bikers in this area everywhere. That everybody is looked at as a blank page when you meet a biker. And your character and the way you conduct yourself around them, they wait to see what you're all about before they make any judgments, and that's what I really admire about that. And I think that's the reason, because the respect and the brotherhood in the clubs is so important, and really what is the reason that they survive so long. I think the biker culture. That's another thing. This is really a culture. And it should be established as a culture, which is another reason I wrote this book. The anthropological angle of it. Hank McGrath in my book is another one who's founded Bikers Against Discrimination, and that's one of the things that he's been trying to do along with me and some other people, is to establish the American biker culture as a culture.
You mean like sort of like that sociologists would,
Yes,
how they define a culture?
I mean, there's, you see the bikers at the helmet rally every year. They call it the Freedom Rally now, but in the 70s they used to call it the helmet rally. And that fight has been going on for over 40 years.
Yeah.
I want to have the freedom to wear or not wear a helmet. But Hank believes, as well as I, that the issue we really have to get to is the way the public looks at bikers, not about loud pipes, not about getting stopped for loud pipes or not wearing a helmet or things like that, to really recognize that this is a different lifestyle, and it's actually another culture.
Well, one thing from reading these profiles and what they had to say, they want to be seen. They don't want to be judged either, which was
Right.
what your book seems to be all about here. Well, one thing that all the 15 men in here write about, it seems to be intertwined. Maybe you know this from your writing days, or from you writing. They seem to be seeking some kind of freedom and peace. It's sort of intertwined. Can you say anything about that? I mean, these guys, a lot of them seem to come from troubled backgrounds, or you describe in the beginning of the book as many of the bikers you've met in some ways are loners, but they all seem to be seeking this.
That's
freedom
true.
and peace kind of intertwined.
That's true. I think everybody.
Of course, we all are
seeks
seeking that, of
right.
course, but we're doing it on a motor.
But I think when we're talking about the people with troubled backgrounds, that's more that may apply more to people in clubs, and that's only because a club becomes like a family, and truly it does. I've seen it. I've seen examples of it, which really amaze me, and they've found the secret. I think that's all I can say about that, is they've found the secret. When I can't even describe it really, what it's like when you are out on a motorcycle and you're riding through the countryside around here, which when you're in a car, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It amazes me every time I go out towards Dwaynesburg or wherever with my husband on the bike, and I feel like I'm in the Amish country, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I never thought this way before.
Yeah.
But you really become part of the earth when you're on the bike, and the freedom that you feel is, well, you can imagine it's like a bird must feel on a. But and I think for a lot of people that's a necessary therapy. I do a lot of thinking when I'm on the back of that bike. And sometimes I'm writing articles in my head on the back of the bike. So I think it is peace. It is for some people, it's their only peace.
And I think you mentioned in the parts that you write, and some of the men in here, there is this sort of when you're on your bike, what a heightened awareness of life, I guess you could say.
Right. I mean, the smells, you just notice a lot more. You see a lot more. It's really fun to watch people. I really love riding in a pack. That's my favorite thing to do with a lot of other people, a lot of other bikes. Because watching the people on the street as you're going by is more entertaining than anything else. I mean, you get a lot of children coming out and waving, and it's just really, it's great. It's a great thing. You always have to be careful. It's, safety is really the most important thing when you're on a motorcycle. But that's really up to every individual. You have to be responsible. You have to respect it. And
well, speaking of this being peace and freedom, and you being out, you write at one point in your book that bikers, and this comes through with the men too, they live every moment of their lives with passion. It seems to be an ongoing theme of all the people that you talk about in here. All right. Well, I want to ask you about some terms that you use through here. What's the difference between like a biker and a clubber? What's the difference between that? Those terms kept coming up a lot. I wasn't sure what.
Well, bikers can be anybody. My husband, for example, doesn't consider himself a biker. He will say, I'm a photographer who really loves to ride a motorcycle. Okay, that's right. Bikers who are in clubs are club members. They are all part of a club. They're the ones you see with the vests on and the patches, and hopefully we'll get some of them here on August 13th, and everybody will get to meet a few of them. But and that's really the only difference. They are in a club. They belong to a club. When you see them, they're usually not alone. They're usually with other club members. And
now, are you and your husband a member of a club?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So, how did you start with the New York Writer magazine? How'd
Okay.
that start?
New York Writer magazine started in,
I should say the parts in between your 15 profiles are some,
Right.
these are some of your articles from, okay.
that's right. New York Writer magazine was started in 2004 by a woman named Carmela Brown out in Syracuse, New York, and she had seen an photography ad, actually an ad that my husband did for Orange County Choppers, I think it was, on the back of a national magazine,
Yeah.
because he photographs for them. And she decided to call him when she learned he was from the New York area and Albany, and asked him if he would be willing to do a photo shoot. And he said yes. And from that point on, Dino became the chief photographer of New York Writer magazine. Now, a couple of times I thought I should probably write an article or two, for some of the, he did a
Were you a writer in any way before you started doing this? Or?
Not really, except that I've been a secretary for
Okay.
30 years,
Yeah.
and I work for a very, very, a group of librarians who are really thorough with everything
Okay.
they do, and, we write things, we prepare things for the regents
Yeah.
and everybody.
All right, so you were in on the
you know,
writing, okay.
Yes.
Good.
So Dino was photographing. He did a photo shoot one day for a child who had cancer and wanted to meet the Orange County Chopper crew out in Newburgh. So Dino said, could you write a little article about this? I'll tell you what happened. I didn't go with him, but he said, could you write something? And I did, and Carmela loved it, and she said, you should keep contributing articles if you can. If you go to any events, please write a little paragraph or two. And so I started doing that, and she would print them every month. And then I said, well, how about if I start my own column? I'll call it Lisa's Piece. And one of the chapters in my book is Lisa's Piece. So then I started doing things every month, and then she lost her editor in 2007, and I agreed to, she asked me if I would like to assume that position. I said yes. So
Okay.
that's how New York Writer started. New York Writer, what we do is basically, it's all about going to every biker event we can go to between
York State.
here and and writing about it, reporting about it. She does a lot out in Syracuse. I only do really mostly this area, and we have other people who do other areas, but
Okay.
that's what that's all about.
Well, I'm going to ask you now about a few of the people in your book that really intrigued me. I mean, there's one in here, I'll just go by his name, you can tell me about him, but there's a guy named Four Speed. I found him most interesting. Tell me a little bit about him.
Four Speed is really interesting.
Well, I got to say, all these people seem, in their own way, very...
And the most fascinating thing about Four Speed is I've never met
I know,
him
that's
in
what I was going to
life,
say.
in person. But when you read the chapter, you know how that came about. I met him online when I was researching biker culture and motorcycles, and learned a lot from that man because he seemed to me to be really, really in tune with everything. Very intelligent. And he was a good one to squash my misconceptions. He's an avid reader. I mean, the man probably reads two books a week, but at the same time, he was a biker since the time he was a child, was probably on a bike when he was 6 years old, and grew up in that culture. As far as I know, has never been in a club.
Yeah.
And just was very interesting to converse with over the past 10 years or so. If I had a question about biker culture or whatever, he would be he would be a good one to ask.
Well, most of the men in here, they don't seem like the 9-to-5 types. They've all had a wide variety of jobs and stuff. Another person who really intrigued me, you already mentioned, but I found him really interesting, maybe because I'm from Troy, but this guy is too. His name is Hank McGrath. I shouldn't say he's from Troy, he's from South Troy, so, which is a little separate.
Hank is not a biker. Hank,
but he's working for the rights of...
Yes, I had to include him because he's such a staunch supporter of bikers and founded Bikers Against Discrimination Association, which when he abbreviates it, he's proud to say it's BAD-ASSN.
I know.
Which is really funny, but he's another one who lived through unbelievable circumstances in his life, was incarcerated for 27 years, but is also very, probably one of the most intelligent people I know, and is another prolific writer. And he's interesting and could talk about anything that, and is pretty well respected around here because of his work that he does for the bikers in the community.
Okay, I'll mention one other one, again, to give you an idea of the wide range of people in this book. There's a story, there's a profile near the end of the book about someone named, is it Tim Abair? Is that how you say it?
Tim Abair.
Tim Abair. A totally amazing story. Tell us a little bit about him.
Tim, I met when I had to do something out, I had to edit an article that he wrote, and he didn't like what I wrote, so I was a little perturbed. And I said, when I meet you, remind me to slap you. Because anyway, when we did finally meet, we had a lot in common, and he was another one. I would watch him. I watched him first before I actually met him. Excuse me. And he would be the one that was, he had this bike with pink flames painted on it, which everybody would say, how could, can't believe this guy's got pink flames. And he would blow flames out of the back of his bike. I don't know how he did it, why he did it.
Oh, you mean literally?
Yeah.
Okay. I was
The
wondering.
flames come out, he does something
Yeah.
to the bike so that the flames come. And it causes a big commotion at all the biker events, and everybody loves it, and everybody claps, and everybody loves it. And I thought, oh, he really thinks he's all that, you know. So then when I met him and started talking to him, he was really nice, polite, respectful, and everything. And then over time, I got to know him better and learned that he's a very, very compassionate person, really self-conscious about a lot of things, which really surprised me, because when you see that kind of a person who draws attention to themselves, you think, no, they're not shy at all. You know, he actually is very shy. And it's just, he's one that really surprised me. He turned out to have one of the biggest hearts out of anybody I've ever met, and we're really good friends right now. And but another one that I had a total different opinion of before I even talked to him, you know, and that's what this is all about. I've been judged all my life too because of my weight, and I should know better, but still I was guilty of that. I would listen to everything I heard on the news and in the books that I read about bikers, and I think, you know, they're just not my kind of people. And then when I'd start talking to them, I discovered that they were wonderful people.
To sum up some of these people we've been talking about, is there, maybe there isn't, but is there a typical person who's a biker, or it's because it's such a wide range. It could be, I mean, you're right in here, you know people who are doctors and lawyers and some of the characters like you write about.
I don't think I can say there's a typical person, because I've met people from all walks of life, including men and women. But Mardo, who's in the book, struck me when I had him answer that question. We were talking at our interview, and he said, Lisa, I really think there's a reason that we're all brought together. You know, everybody in the motorcycle community, there's something that's drawing us all together. He said, I don't know what it is either, but I don't know, maybe it's I call it the real moments, people that can really appreciate real moments in their life. And because of the potential danger that we all face when we get on the bike, we cherish those moments that we're together more. I think that may be part of it. I don't know.
You mentioned when you're writing about that part, whenever the ride begins or ends, there's always like a lot of the hugging and greeting and everything. When you're,
Yeah, and that's really something to see. It really is. Carmela and I comment on that all the time. Sometimes we'll just sit, we'll say hello to everybody when we arrive at an event, and then we'll sit and just watch everybody, because you don't leave a place without greeting someone with a hug. Some people that you know. I'm saying, it's like any other arena that if you went to a party somewhere, you're not going to go up and hug somebody you don't know. But if you know if you know somebody at an event, it's impossible for you to go or leave without greeting that person with a hug or saying goodbye with a hug. That's just the way it is. And that's one of the wonderful parts about this culture, is I haven't seen that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's because everybody knows maybe this is the last time I'll see you,
Okay. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for coming by. I just mentioned your website will be on the screen here.
Right.
What is it?
The website is www.wix.com/BACI98/gloves come off.
All right. Well, people just go to Google and type in your name, they'll get there.
Yes, and it's available at Barnes & Noble.
And if you want to hear Lisa talk about her book, and she's going to be bringing perhaps a few of the people that are profiled in here, come to the library Monday night, August 13th, 7 p.m., and you can find out about the book. You can ask Lisa questions. You can ask some of the guys questions. So thank you for coming, Lisa.
Thank you very much for having me.
The book is The Gloves Come Off, and we will see you next time on Meet the Author.